Hello, my name is Drew Kinsey, Senior Research Analyst with MU Extension, Agriculture Business and Policy. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating how to use the 2026 Beef Enterprise Budget Spreadsheet. First, we need to open our browser window. I'm going to use Google Chrome. Once we got our window open, type in a simple search for the Agriculture Business Extension page like MU EXT Ag Biz. Once we type in that search query, one of the first things that should come up should be the Agriculture Business and Policy page. We'll click the link to the page and it'll open the extension website. On the extension website, the best way to find the enterprise budgets is to scroll down a little ways and navigate to the enterprise budget submenu with this link. We'll click the link and get to the enterprise budget page, which is broken down into different commodity classes like crops, livestock and poultry, and specialty agriculture. Since we're talking about the beef budgets today, we're looking for the beef heading. We'll click on the heading and find all the beef budgets laid out, as well as the spreadsheet tools indicated by the acronym XLSX. The beef budget tool is what we want, so we'll click on the link and it should download at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Once the download is completed, click on the link and the spreadsheet should begin to open on your computer. It may take a minute to get this done. Once the spreadsheet is open, there's one more thing that we need to do before we get into the demonstration. If at the top of your screen you see this message highlighted in tan or some other color about being in protected view, we need to go over to the right and hit the Enable Editing button to allow your computer to modify the spreadsheet. We'll click the button, the message will go away, and we're ready to edit. Once you've opened your spreadsheet, you'll be on the introduction page, which introduces the author's names, basic information about what's contained, and most importantly, this gray box, which says that only the gray cells like this one throughout the spreadsheet can be edited in order to protect the formulas and structure of the spreadsheet, which allow it to calculate important values automatically. Navigate the spreadsheet from left to right, first going to the Inputs page. On the Inputs page, you can make a lot of changes that are going to reflect each individual budget as we go across the spreadsheet. To make changes here, select a cell. In this case, we'll just select the rental rate cell and type in the value that you would like to change the default to. In this case, let's reduce the $50 an acre rental rate down to 40. So type in 40, hit enter, and that value is changed. This input message on the grazing system management price cell is something I'd like to call attention to. Certain places throughout the spreadsheet, input messages are provided to help give you some more insight on what a certain cell is asking for, just like this one. So if you see those, that's what they're there for. In the feed section, there's a little bit more complicated input to make. This section is fully editable. You can change any of these feed stuffs to something unique that you're feeding on your operation. There's one blank row listed, so we'll go ahead and do an example of how to enter a new feed stuff. In this case, we'll type in wheat baleage for our name. That's going to be priced by the ton, 2,000 pounds per ton at roughly 50% dry matter. And we're going to say that costs us $85 a ton. And now we've entered a new feed stuff in the feed section. The other input section includes things like our labor rate, fertilizer cost, interest rate, and tax and insurance on our facilities and cow herd. Like I said, these are going to flow across all the budgets going over to the right. Each of the individual budget tabs are very similar. We're just going to walk through an example using the fall calving cow-calf budget, but there are very minimal differences on the cattle feeding budgets. Biggest thing is using the different feed calculations where we're inputting our percent of ration on a DM basis and calculating our feed quantities with the feed conversion ratio. But feel free to reach out to me if you need further explanation on that because it is just a little bit different in the cow-calf budgets. Each individual budget page, things are laid out with the budget on the left and then the more detailed assumptions over on the right. The assumptions that we're working with are our feed assumptions, where we can select a feed ingredient by using the drop-down menu. So if we want to change our mixed hay to, let's say we're going to be feeding in alfalfa hay because we want to feed some better quality stuff for whatever reason, we can just go back and make that selection here in these drop-down menus. Moving over, we have our pounds per day, type in whatever you need to do, and then the number of days you're feeding that feed stuff throughout the year, and then it'll calculate the total you're feeding as well as the cost, both per head and for the entire herd. The additional herd information is a little bit of information about your operation, things like herd size, number of bulls you have, animal lifespan, our replacement rates, death loss. One new thing is our heifer source. So whether we're purchasing heifers to replace our cows or we're raising them on the farm, there's a drop down here also. So if you raise heifers for your operation, you can select raise, which in this case is reducing our cow replacement costs by about 43 bucks per head. And we're using the cash-based cost from our replacement heifer budget to get that value, comparing it to our replacement heifer cost down lower in the section. Machinery costs, this is fully editable to fit whatever machinery you want. So type in your piece, what the hourly rate is for that piece of equipment, and then how much you're using it. And lastly, our building facilities, where we're accepting more input if you have something different, but type in the value, how much of the use of that thing is allocated for the herd, and then how long that is going to last and what it's going to be worth after lifespan is over. To go through the budget, we have two different columns on our cow-calf budgets. One for low breeding percentage and high if you want to compare. If you had a poor breeding season, I need to type in a lower rate, and these can be changed. So if we had a poor breeding season, we think maybe only be at 85%, we can make that change, and that's going to be automatically reflected here in this column. The top section on our budget is our income, where we have our weights times our price per hundredweight. And then the cull cows, which is the weight of our cows from the additional herd information, price per hundredweight. And then this value is calculated using these numbers here for our weight and our price times 10%, which is our 12% cow replacement minus our 2% for death loss. So all of that can be changed to fit what you're seeing on your operation. In our operating costs, we have our feed inputs here. Input your stocking rate for pasture wise, labor rates, veterinary, everything that is going through your operation can be found here. Input your own values in gray, like we said. Your ownership costs are going to be down below for some more of those fixed costs for the operation. And then that gets us into our totals section. We break out the totals in a couple different ways. Cash-based costs, which exclude labor, machinery depreciation, facility depreciation, interest on the cow herd is a big one. That's all excluded in our cash-based costs for a better feel of what you're actually writing a check for in any given year. Total cost is complete economic costs. So we can argue about which is more accurate in the long term, but either way, our bases are covered with one of these numbers here. And we break down income or profitability in three different ways as well, based on our cash-based costs, total costs, or our operating costs up above. And then lastly, we have our break-even calf price, which is based on our cash-based costs. And this is basically what our per hundredweight price needs to be in order to break even on that particular year. At the very bottom of each budget, we have a sensitivity analysis, which uses a couple of different variables. Over here on the left-hand side, we're always going to have price as one variable, whether that's price per hundredweight or price per head in our heifer budget. And then at the top, we have different variables in the feeding budgets like dry lot backgrounding, fed cattle, and pasture backgrounding. That's going to be a weight variable up at the top where we're adding weight to cattle. And then for our cow-calf budgets and our heifer budget, this is either going to be weaning rate or a pregnancy rate among those animals. So this allows you to see changes to your profitability in terms of return over cash expenses as either of those factors changes. So it just gives a little picture of how insulated the operation is to changing market conditions or physical production characteristics. That's the cow-calf budgets in a nutshell. Like I said, the others are very similar. If you do have questions on the other budgets, feel free to reach out to me by email by clicking this link, and I'll be happy to help in any way that I can.